We are less than 100 days to the midterm elections, which means things are about to get even crazier. But before that happens, I thought we should spend a little time checking in on where things are at with both parties. The Republicans are knee-deep in efforts to pass the Save America Act, while there's yet another revolt among Republican senators happening. Who's revolting against who? Kind of depends on which side you're on. And Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is running a literal Hail Mary play for the midterms already. But it's not good on the Democratic side either. The Democratic Party is massively underfunded, according to new reporting, and paranoia is spreading among the top brass as they lay out a must-win plan on the ground for 2026. I've got some insider information on that for you, too. It's Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. Welcome to Make It Make Sense. I'm Grant Hermes. Before we get going, right now Make It Make Sense is in the middle of celebrating 2 years of independent reporting. When I started this, it was about doing the news in a way that made sense of a chaotic political world, and it's only gotten more chaotic. But I wanted to do that without corporate owners or algorithms dictating the coverage, just the news that matters to you and why. Since then, it's grown into what you're listening to right now, in-depth breakdowns every other day and insightful interviews. Plus, if you're a subscriber to the Make It Make Sense Substack, things you forgot from civics class, Make It Make Nonsense, and Too Long Tuned Out, that stuff is hitting your inboxes 6 or 7 days a week. That's a lot of work, and the price has been $5 a month since day one, but it's going to change. Starting August 21st, it's going up to $7. If you subscribe before then, you'll get the $5 a month or $50 a year locked in at that price. You can subscribe right now at makeitmakesensepod.substack.com or head to the link in the description. And thank you, seriously. Whether you're a paid subscriber, a free subscriber, or you just tune in to the podcast when you can. Your support means the world to me, no matter how you support the show. Okay, let's get on with the show. As of recording this, we are 98 days from the midterm elections. The House is already on its summer recess, so representatives can go home for the next month to campaign their hearts out before having to return for a budget fight to finish off the year, something, we can all look forward to for the holidays. Really quickly, though, here's what this map looks like. In the House, there are 435 total seats. To have control, a party needs 218 seats. Republicans right now have 219 seats compared to Democrats' 212. And the way the math works out is that Democrats only need to win a net of 3 seats to win back the House. Every 2 years, every member of the House is up for re-election, but because of gerrymandering, 81% of those seats were essentially locked in from the start. And what that means is it comes down to about 46 seats that are considered battleground seats or seats where the races could be close, and really just 18 of those are races that are considered toss-ups by the Cook Political Report, which is the best in the game at tracking things like this. In the Senate, elections are staggered, so only a third of the Senate is being elected every cycle. This year, of the 35 races, there are 12 that are considered battleground, but according to Cook, 4 of them are toss-ups. That's Alaska, Maine, Michigan, and Ohio, with 4 more races that don't have incumbents, or what we call sitting politicians who are running for re-election. Those are in Iowa, Texas, North Carolina, and New Hampshire. Now that matters because incumbents tend to have a huge advantage in elections. They get access to more party money, they can make more promises to donors because they're already in office, and they're more well-known by voters. Republicans control 53 seats in the 100-seat Senate, and Democrats would need to flip 4 seats in elections this year, while also defending at least 2. It's a big ask, even though some recent numbers have suggested that it's definitely possible. On top of all that, one of the things that you can pretty much be certain of when it comes to midterm elections is that the president's party loses. By how much is up for debate depending on the year. This year, the road for Republicans to not just keep control, but avoid becoming a super minority is quickly becoming a much, much steeper hill to climb. First, there was some new polling from Fox News that I talked about last week where Democrats overtook Republicans in every single issue, including immigration, foreign policy, the economy, and inflation when voters were asked which party they would prefer to handle those issues. Then, today, we got more polling from Ipsos and Reuters, a top-tier polling firm, that found that if the election were held today, 36% of people said they'd vote for Democrats compared to 32% who said they'd vote for Republicans. 4% may not seem like a lot, but in an election, it is. And an even bigger gap is with the oh-so-coveted independent voters, the people that parties like to think are the most winnable. 26% say they'd vote for Democrats compared to 15% who said Republicans. That is an 11-point spread and is a massive political gap. And the president isn't helping his own party either. His latest approval rating was 30%, and that is dragging the entire party down because they have to be in lockstep with him, which is unusual. Usually around the midterms, presidents let their party members off the leash a little bit. They let them tell their voters they're not just mindless followers of the president or the party leaders, and they're there to be the voices of the people who send them to office or who they're asking to send them to office. That is not the case with Trump, as we know, and it means that every member of the House and the Senate running right now on the Republican side has to tie themselves to the mast of Trump's sinking poll numbers. That has not, however, deterred Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, who isn't throwing his hands up, but he is asking for some divine intervention already.
I've been openly saying this. I told a big gaggle of Hill Press reporters yesterday at an event. I said, listen, this is a God thing. It really is. I mean, we have intercessory prayers who are on the ground at the Capitol praying each of these things through. My colleagues know that. They know I believe that, and we're watching it happen. More and more people are understanding there must be something to this because this is an impossible agenda.
So I don't want to disparage Johnson's faith here. It's just that what that reads is less like Johnson is confident in his party's chances and more that he's at this sort of like let go and let God approach to the midterms, which isn't a strategy. Not really. And Trump doesn't seem to have a strategy either because he is still laser focused on forcing the Senate to pass the Save America Act. In a post on Truth Social on Monday, he said the Senate Majority Leader John Thune, quote, should not allow the United States Senate to, quote, leave town until he passes the Save America Act, or far better still, terminates the filibuster, where Republicans can then quickly pass everything they ever dreamed of, adding, remember, stupidity always brings losing and death. And before I go on, imagine any other American president promising a consequence of American deaths on U.S. soil if his party lost an election. Imagine if George H.W. Bush had said it, or Bill Clinton, or Obama, or W. I mean, it's an objectively insane thing for a sitting president to say when it's almost guaranteed that his party is going to lose the midterms as a matter of historical pattern, not just polling. Anyway, Trump is desperate to keep the Senate from going on its summer recess starting August 7th. And I think I've said before that it was August 10th, but technically the recess starts next Friday instead of the following Monday. So it's a calendar technicality, but whatever. Now, to try and force Republicans in the Senate to stay, to end the filibuster and to pass the Save America Act, he is withholding the $400 million his MAGA Inc. Political Action Committee has raised since he's been back in office from helping vulnerable Republicans in races across the country. Just last week, in an Oval Office meeting, North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer asked Trump to spend some of that money, just a little bit, on members of his own party because voters tend to turn out when Trump backs Republicans. And Trump said, well, they will turn out if you pass the Save America Act, essentially holding the money hostage in exchange for this bill. But as Leader John Thune has explained a lot over the last 5 months, the votes to pass the Save America Act or even end the filibuster just aren't there. Here's how he put it on Fox News last night. And for listeners, this is broken into 2 clips.
He does. I mean, the main thing he wants, Sean, as you know, is the Save America Act. And that is something where, like I said, we've had multiple votes on it now. Not a single Democrat has voted for it. I think we continue to put him on the record. But we've had 5 different votes on it already. If we can get a chance to vote on it again, the best way to do that would be in a budget reconciliation bill. And that would enable us not only to get a vote on that in some form. It's not going to be everything the president wants.
Getting rid of the filibuster non-starter, you don't have the votes?
Well, we don't. And I've actually I've had this conversation with the president many times, I think, as you know. And I actually suggested at one point that his team come up and sit down and visit with some of my colleagues. So they came up, met with about 20 Republican senators, and 15 were no on getting rid of the filibuster. The votes aren't there to do it. I know he thinks he can persuade people But there are a lot of folks who are this is a hard position for a lot of Senate Republicans.
John Thune isn't someone to fly off the handle, but you can tell he is tired of this conversation, and it is not going away. Because 7 Republicans have now said they'll vote against leaving for the summer recess in order to pass the Save America Act. Now, that's 7 against 93 votes in the Senate, so really there's no chance of this succeeding. They're just kind of throwing a little tantrum, but it's also a signal to Trump. And like I've said before, the clock is ticking on doing anything with this bill because the 90-day by federal law where states can't mess with their voter rolls starts on August 4th. That's next Tuesday, though I'll be writing a little more about this tomorrow to Make It Make Sense Substack. Republicans might be looking to fudge with that federal law a little bit. But that doesn't mean that Trump isn't keeping score and might not decide to punish a ton of Republican senators for not doing exactly what he wanted. Which, once again, at a critical time for Republicans, Trump is putting himself in front of the party, and Republicans are finding themselves between him, voters, rocks, and hard places, and nobody is where they want to be. Okay, let's take a break, and on the other side, we will talk about the Democrats' own struggles right now, because they are a party that, if nothing else, just cannot seem to get out of their own way. You know how every social media platform is basically engineered to make you angry and keep you scrolling? That's not an accident. Outrage performs better than nuance, so the algorithm feeds you outrage. I see it every day as someone making news content for a living. The loudest, most biased takes get the reach. The careful, fact-driven stuff like I do my best to bring you here gets buried. That's why I joined Say So. It's a brand new news app just launched, built by a group of former journalists and engineers who asked, what if we build news from scratch for people who actually want to be informed instead of people who just want to keep scrolling? No algorithm optimizing for outrage, no AI slop, just vetted creators delivering fact-driven coverage, curated so you can know what's going on in 5 minutes and then get on with your day. If you're the kind of person who is intentional about your sleep, your workouts, your work, what you eat, but your news diet is just whatever your feed throws at you, this is for you. The same energy finally applied to how you stay informed. I'm one of the first creators on Say So, and my favorite feature is that I can link my sources right in the video. That way, you know how I'm telling you the truth. And if you sign up now, you'll be one of the first users to join. You can download Say So. The link is in the show notes and the description. Go check it out and be as smart as you know you are. All right, let's get back to the show. The Democrats are in trouble. They've been in trouble since 2024. I've talked about it a lot. I've had a number of conversations with guests on this show. The party still lacks a clear political leader. The 2024 election autopsy was an absolute failure to explain what happened and what the vision for the Democratic Party would be going forward. And even with the last few months of polls showing Democrats are the preferred party for voters this fall, the Democratic Party is in shambles. Mostly it's a money problem, but that's a big problem. The Republican Party has raised around $130 million, plus Trump's $400 million compared to the Democratic Party's negative $2 million. According to Federal Elections Commission filings, the DNC had $16 million in the bank with $18 million in debt. They're so underwater that they had to put up their headquarters as collateral to get a bank loan, the political equivalent of betting the farm. And they've started asking vendors that they work with to not bill them until after the election, hoping they can raise more money in these next final weeks. A lot of that fundraising and those problems stem from the fact that there's a lot of lost confidence in the leadership at the top of the party, particularly Ken Martin, the guy who botched the 2024 after-election report. The New York Times reported this week that Martin has been acting erratic and paranoid. He's been forcing staff to sign non-disclosure agreements for routine meetings, and in one of those meetings, he threw a phone at a staffer during what was called a peak of frustration, though it was later disputed whether he actually threw his phone at that staffer or just like in their general direction. Either way, it forced the DNC to open an HR investigation. Martin is also apparently paralyzed by the idea and the fear of leaks coming from inside the party after there was an outside backlash to his release of the 2024 report and a small and ultimately failed internal effort to get him to step down from his position as head of the party. And that's a difficult way to run one of the largest political parties in the country. Now, the rest of the party doesn't seem as paralyzed, but they do seem a little afraid. I was on a call yesterday meant for Democratic donors, as a journalist, not a donor, and they're still focused on winning races, but it was much more desperate sounding than I expected for a party that is ahead as much as they are in the polls. They're targeting 9 toss-up races in the Senate. 6 they have to flip and 3 they have to keep. They're including Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff's seat in that keep list. In the House, they think there are 25 seats they can flip, 21 Republican seats they think are in play, and another 26 seats they're calling, quote, frontline seats, but they're the ones Republicans would consider are in play and that they could take from Democrats. That's a really optimistic map, but the way the messaging was coming across was less energetic, like meant to get donors on the call geared up and to donate and to volunteer, and a little more frantic and frankly frightened. They also talked about the must-win races for governor in Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, flipping state legislatures in Wisconsin and Arizona, which will be tall tasks. And because those are all battleground states, they consider those must-wins for the presidential election come 2028, which is how far they're thinking out. One of the things I found really surprising was their ask for $4 million from donors, about 25% of what they have in the bank right now, to go to voter protection and voter access programs. What exactly that means is a little unclear, but the party has been running scenarios out of quote-unquote war rooms in battleground states where they expect the president to try and undermine the election results should he lose. Democrats say they still need 18 more directors in states around the country to run these programs, likely people who will need to get up to speed with specific election law, procedures, and voting systems in just under 3.5 months. Now, like I've said before in the show, and like other guests like Mike Nellis or Amanda Littman have said, the DNC isn't the entire party. Mostly, they help fund races and set up party rules and primaries. It's turned out, however, a lot of candidates that are running haven't really needed the help of the overall party when it comes to raising money. In every major Senate race, the Democrats are vastly outracing their Republican opponents, and according to an analysis from Politico, Democratic candidates in the top 10 races in the House are basically printing money they're bringing in so much. Which, if you're Ken Martin, that is helpful. You can draft off that success for a while until you get your house in order, unless, the bank calls in the debt on your house. But that is the outlook right now, about 100 days to the midterms. Democrats are still in a position to retake the House, maybe the Senate, while behind the scenes things are falling apart around them. And for Republicans, their last attempts to keep full control of the government might come down to how afraid a bunch of senators are of Donald Trump, or whether they're up for playing chicken with him this fall instead. All right. That is it for today's show. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcast. Become a paid subscriber to the Make It Make Sense Substack to get access to this week's Things You Forgot from Civics class, which is all about the Bill of Rights, what's actually in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, why they had to be added in after the fact, and why they still matter now. And if you're not a subscriber yet, don't forget you have until August 20th to subscribe at the original Make It Make Sense price of just $5 a month or $50 for the entire year. Before it goes up, you can subscribe at makeitmakesensepod.substack.com or head to the link in the description. And as always, share the show on social media. You can tag me at Grant Hermes on Twitter, Blue Sky, and the Say So News app, and at Grant_Hermes on everything else. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm Grant Hermes, and I'll talk to you next time.